recording equipment and editing equipment, and is totally stoked about video.
Yeah.
So I think in order to keep them engaged and excited about the project, we need to kind of pair him with video. So I'd almost move Aaron down with Chris, so do Chris and Aaron as video.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to him about social media, and he doesn't seem to know much about like tweeting and Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Boutier does.
Boutier does.
She does. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So she actively researches it. So
Okay.
I think Aaron will be better at formulating what type of content and actually approaching people to collect the content, rather than determining the strategy in which to disseminate the content, which Buchan and XYZ can figure out. It's like the strategy of actually how to then take that content that Aaron or Chris are collecting, right? Through video or whatever.
Collecting and editing.
Yeah. And say this is a good quality content that Buchan and XYZ can also send out.
Okay. So it seems like then Boutier or XYZ are definitely this reception person, or this. Well, no, I'm sorry. XYZ person is probably this coordinator. Because if we have Boutier who's like, if we have XYZ as the coordinator, like here's all of our stuff. I'm working to.
I think the way we need to look at this social media is not from the blocks that actually that's what Corey wants us to try to think of a framework or think of those blocks. Okay, so
Well, I think social media is the distributor. That's the way that I'm thinking about it. Social media is literally like Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
well,
And it's just a distribution outlet. It's also a distribution and engagement, and it could also be a way of receiving too.
Yeah.
But I think it's on these two.
That's true, because I was also thinking like what content is actually good for social media. But then
Right.
that type of what's good for social media can also be good for other platforms.
Yeah.
So okay, so
I think, and I honestly think like, I don't know, like if all of the media should be relatively good for social media. Like what are you thinking when you say create it to be good for social media?
in terms of like, okay, if the goal of social media is to get people to have conversations around it, get people to share the information, get people to click, get people to like, etc. Right?
Yeah.
What characteristics of content achieve those results? So then,
I'm sorry, I just want to correct something. We're getting into strategy, right? So what you're saying is the distribution and the strategy behind that is going to be assigned to, for social media, is going to be Boutier and XYZ. How they do it, what content they're going to take for, we can. That's, I think, maybe a little bit of a later conversation.
We're getting, okay.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I just want to like really focus on the how and the execution, and really assigning the roles and responsibilities, and worry about some of that stuff a little bit later. Yeah.
So what?
It's like of these people, because these are the we know they're going to be the operators, right? These are the operation teams as we have now, unless there's some other people like Ro or Shemaya that want to take in something. We have no information that that's the case. Is this going to cover it from this perspective, and do we need new interns and what? And that's a process of how to. Is that part of it? Is that we can continually do outreach through schools or through other channels to bring on new people, and assigning these people to that framework that we've mapped out, primarily to receive and to distribute. Is there anything else we need to do besides that? From a how perspective.
Well,
Not a what.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing for me is, and tell me if I'm wrong too, because you can be thinking different, like, how are we actually getting the word out about people engaging in this content? How are we actually hooking people to do this for us? Like, aside from the interns actually running it, how are we arming them with a good strategy for getting people on board, and what does that look like? Because I feel like that's a what that hasn't necessarily been figured out yet,
Right.
that needs
Right.
to inform the how, and I think that's a big how that's missing right now.
Too many what's in house. Okay. So you're saying, okay, so we're armed with, if they're going out and they're trying to get content, you're not necessarily saying, you're talking about receive. So there's the for, and there's the going that how do we empower people to be coming to them or to be giving them content? So, and what is the strategy behind that?
So
What's
my-
the how
my
for that?
brain just caught up with me right now. So I was sorry, everything was just like, I just remember like, oh yeah, that's what we're meeting today for. Okay, so I think we briefly talked. Sorry, my brain literally just caught up. I was like, oh God, I'm like.
In terms of like we're talking about how?
No, I just arrived at this meeting. Like,
Okay.
so everything. No, I think you just said something, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're meeting about. Okay, so. I think we discussed last time how because of the current stage that we have with our social media, it's still very much, we still need to be at a very iterate, test, stop trying to create this perfect system around it. So what we need to do is we know the what's in terms of the specific types of content that we want to test. We want to iterate on and test, right? So right now, what we need to focus on with the how is how are we actually going to collect and build the content to kind of form those what's that we thought of, right?
And
So
who's
And who's in charge of that?
Who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of iterating and testing too?
Yeah.
So that's the whole process. So
But there's someone that can look at it.
yeah,
and
so
take a look at it.
that's what Megan and I have been in charge of, SoCap and Hub respectively. So she's been in charge of whatever's been coming through with SoCap, and I've been in charge of whatever's been coming through with Hub. So then, what we need to do now that we have a new team here is figure out how we want to delegate essentially our foot soldiers to create and collect this content for whatever what's being thought, right? And we'll just monitor from there. So.
Welcome, Jack.
Welcome to the meeting. Great.
So with the
We have the who, how, the what. What is not what we're talking about?
yeah, so so what I'm saying is I think why don't we map out our what's so then we can just connect the hows. I think because what can happen with this, right, is we can actually test various ways of how on the different what's simultaneously. Right? So, because that was something that Aaron Hart actually did. That was useful. Is that we actually tested out different ways of collecting information for Facebook and kind of to distribute, see which is actually effectively getting hits or likes, and then from those.
Do you use a software
Yeah.
tool for that?
Huh?
Do you just have a tool for that?
Oh no, it's all like Facebook already has a built-in metric system to actually track all those things, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying there are programs I know that like amalgamate all of your different social media things and show.
Yeah,
you
so
different-
he did. I had him like basically go in and find out that information and like collect all that data. So then we were able to figure out, okay, this was the most effective way. This was the most hit. So then what we would then do is take that process and cross the other fork. So this is what I was also talking about in terms of like we aren't experts on how the best way to what we are good at and what we can be good at is determining the what's because we know the community the best, right? So what I'm saying is with the how, what we need to do is make a general, I think with the how, that's what I was kind of talking about over the phone with you guys. Like we need to bring in guys like Jamie, like Chris, like Maureen, and saying this is the what that we're trying to accomplish. Instead of us trying to spend like hours figuring out what's the best way of how to receive this information, how we structure our people, let's present to them initially and say we have at our disposal these 6 people. You guys work on media stuff every single day, right? These are the what's that we want to try to accomplish and try to collect.
That's not.
Right.
I mean, maybe the thing is that's not actually Maureen's position. Maureen's
Okay,
position
whatever.
is
It doesn't have to
strategy.
be Maureen. It can be other people that we know that are really good at social media